The galaxy was no longer safe. Not from humans, not from gods, but from the space in between, the quiet, unanchored voids where intention had once ruled. Every civilization had felt it, a subtle trembling in thought, an unfamiliar doubt in memory, the creeping sensation that certainty itself was fragile. Humanity had become an axis of chaos, not because they were powerful, but because they could not be measured. Commanders aboard human cruisers noticed the change first, not on sensors, not in readings, but in behavior. Alien civilizations that once relied on psionic oversight began experimenting with autonomy. Systems previously pacified by the chorus fractured. Minor species made irrational alliances. Independent thinkers emerged where previously none were permitted. "It's happening faster than expected," Admiral Kovacs murmured during a briefing, her fingers drumming on the console. "We intervene in one system, and two more reorganize themselves unpredictably." A junior officer frowned. "Isn't that good?" Kovacs shook her head. "Yes, and terrifying. Order is chaos to some. Chaos is opportunity to others. We don't know which is which yet." From orbit, human crews could see the effects ripple outward. Formerly subdued worlds erupted into dissonance. Ancient temples of psionic worship were abandoned. Entire fleets mutinied simply because the chain of command no longer felt necessary. Some humans celebrated the shift, others feared it. On Earth, debates raged. Philosophers argued across live feeds. Should we intervene to guide these civilizations, or let them learn, fail, and survive on their own? The answer was never uniform. Humanity had no doctrine for stewardship. They had only survival, curiosity, and stubbornness. Meanwhile, beyond mapped space, a new ripple emerged. The stillness, though repelled, had not vanished. It moved slowly, quietly, toward the outer reaches where human influence was expanding. "They sense us," Soleth warned, his voice tight with concern. "Not physically, not even cognitively, but their presence is drawn to ours like gravity." "They're not gods," Thalian replied, older now, his mind heavy with centuries of observation. "But they will test humans differently than any god ever could." Human fleets prepared anyway. Godbreaker groups were dispatched not to destroy, not to lead, but to confront the unknown. The first encounter was subtle. Probes entering the stillness's periphery registered nothing. No psionic field, no energy signature, no anomaly in matter or radiation. Yet human crews felt it instantly, a weight not on the body but on thought. Ideas slowed. Plans became hard to form. Even trivial decisions required effort. "Feels like thinking through syrup," one pilot complained over the comms. "Everything is heavy." Kovacs replied calmly, "Keep moving, observe, that's all we can do." Inside the zone, humans began to notice something familiar. Their minds, fragmented as they were, could function where others would fail. Individual contradictions interfered with the stillness's effect. The chaotic layering of human thought created pockets of clarity that resisted the creeping dullness. It was the same principle that had broken gods, only subtler. Hours stretched, days passed. The humans learned to trust the friction between their own doubts and fears, to act not in unity but in improvisation. Their jokes, arguments, and internal debates became tools. Outside, alien observers struggled to comprehend. Entire fleets stationed near the stillness reported a resonance inversion, Psions incapacitated by the very patterns they once relied upon. Back on the bridge of the lead cruiser, Kovacs watched a young ensign fidget nervously. "Are we winning?" Kovacs smiled faintly. "Winning implies rules. There are none here. We're surviving. That's enough for now." The stillness recoiled, not destroyed, not defeated, but forced to pause. Human presence had created something it could not consume, a subtle, impossible gap in its will. Yet as the humans exhaled, relief tempered with foreboding. This was only the beginning. For every god they had broken, every anomaly they had survived, the galaxy had responded in kind. New dangers would emerge, older threats would awaken, and the stillness, patient, vast, and indifferent, would continue to test the limits of human unpredictability. Somewhere in the dark, far beyond mapped space, something waited, watching the echo of humanity ripple outward. And the humans did not yet know it. Humanity's survival in the presence of the stillness sent waves through the galaxy, though few understood why. Entire civilizations began reevaluating their place in the universe. For species that had relied on psionic alignment for millennia, the concept of independent thought became dangerous and intoxicating. Alien historians speculated on the implications. Some suggested that humans were an evolutionary fluke, an anomaly so improbable that the universe itself had conspired to protect them. Others whispered darker theories, that humans were the universe's own corrective, meant to undo centuries of psionic overreach. Meanwhile, human fleets adapted. The chaos within their minds, once considered a liability, became their greatest asset. Pilots, engineers, and officers learned to leverage personal contradiction as a tool. Arguments, jokes, and idle thoughts became a subtle weapon. Every conflict inside a human brain amplified the resistance against the stillness. On the bridge of the flagship Intrepid, Captain Lyra Vance studied the holographic map of the stillness's outer boundary. "It's not just slowing our thoughts," she said. "It's testing patterns, seeing if we can resist when everything internal conflicts. Our chaos is its obstacle." "Obstacle or weapon," muttered her tactical officer, eyes wide. "We can't predict it, but it works." "Then we keep moving," Vance said. "Step by step, each decision counts even if we argue about it." Inside the zone, the stillness began reacting unpredictably. Normally, it had erased motivation uniformly. Now, human minds generated interference, subtle, uncoordinated, yet effective. Fleets could maneuver, vessels could fire, decisions could be made. Not with unity, not with clarity, but with resilience through contradiction. In orbit around a small, neutral planet, a Godbreaker team attempted the first test. Contact with a human outpost deep inside the stillness. Communications flickered. Sensors misread data. But human voices, laughing, arguing, and joking, passed through the fog unbroken. "They're still thinking," one alien observer whispered over the comms. "How is that possible?" Back in human space, political debates flared. Should humans engage the stillness more aggressively? Should they attempt to map it fully or withdraw entirely? "Mapping is useless," one scientist argued. "It adapts. We can't understand it the way we understand anything else, but we can survive it because our thinking is too messy for it to control." A military advisor added, "And if we retreat, does it follow?" "No one knows," the scientist replied, "but we'll learn." Across the galaxy, the first real panic among the consensus-aligned species began. Their fleets, trained for psionic warfare, were helpless in the stillness. Attempts to manipulate humans or coerce them into structured formations failed. The very strategy that had maintained peace across millennia was useless. Even Thalion, observing from a remote archive station, felt a hollow unease. The humans were not just surviving, they were shaping the battlefield without intending to. Their unaligned thought patterns created ripples of instability across psionic space. Other species noticed, and small pockets began experimenting with chaos themselves. "The humans are contagious," Saleth said quietly, staring at the reports. "Not biologically, cognitively, socially. Entire networks are starting to fragment simply because humans exist nearby." "And yet," Thalion murmured, "they have no control, they do not seek power, they merely act as they are." As the stillness tested them further, humans began to improvise in ways that defied prediction. Fleets scattered deliberately, divided into independent cells. Arguments over tactics became training exercises. Disagreement became resilience. Some crew members joked about whether the stillness even liked them. Others, more quietly, wondered if it understood fear or hope or stubbornness. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving. It was teaching the universe a new rule. That resistance did not require coordination, belief, or obedience. It required refusal to yield and the willingness to endure internal conflict as a tool. Deep in the dark, the stillness recoiled. It did not understand humans, could not predict them, and could not consume them. But it waited, and the humans, unaware of the extent of its awareness, pressed onward. Across the galaxy, a question began to spread. What happens when a species refuses not only gods, but entropy itself? And in that silence, the echo of humanity grew louder. The stillness retreated, but it did not leave. Human observers could feel its influence lingering at the edges of space, like a shadow stretched thin but patient. It watched them, probed subtly, testing the limits of human thought without overt attack. Each step into its domain felt heavier than the last. Decisions became exercises in mental endurance, and small disagreements between crew members could cascade into sudden flashes of insight or chaos. Captain Lyra Vance stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching the instruments carefully. Every display flickered with anomalies. Sensors could not read the stillness, yet every human aboard felt it in their minds. A pressure, a weight, a whisper of doubt that insisted quietly that nothing mattered. "We can't fight it," the tactical officer said, voice tight. "Weapons don't work, psionics don't work, even communication is slowed, everything slows." Vance nodded. "It's not a fight, it's adaptation. We survive by thinking differently than it expects, by being human." Around her, crew members argued. Some planned tactical maneuvers, some muttered about food, some debated trivial disagreements about protocols. Individually, none of it mattered. Together, it created resistance. The stillness could not impose uniformity because uniformity required comprehension, and humans could not be comprehended. A young ensign raised a hand. "Captain, I think it's learning from us." Vance tilted her head. "Learning?" "Yes," the ensign said hesitantly. "Every time we argue, every time we act without agreement, its effect weakens slightly. I think it's trying to predict us, and it can't." Vance considered this. She had been trained to trust hierarchy, discipline, and protocol, yet none of that worked here. Human unpredictability, long criticized as inefficiency, was now a weapon. Their refusal to act as one coherent mind meant the stillness could not consume them. "They can't finish us," she murmured. "Not completely, not as long as we think like this." The ship drifted deeper into the stillness, every decision a delicate balancing act. A single wrong choice could kill them all, but indecision, paradoxically, became their ally. The stillness pressed harder, trying to flatten thought, drain curiosity, erase doubt. Humans argued louder, joked louder, disagreed more. And it recoiled. At the edges of human space, alien fleets watched in disbelief. Vessels designed to suppress humanity with psionic or physical might faltered when their crews witnessed human behavior firsthand. The chaos of thought spread outward, minor anomalies propagated like ripples in a pond. Entire fleets hesitated in confusion. Commanders could not predict human decisions, and the ripple of uncertainty reached even the most disciplined psionic species. Thalian, observing from his archive station, recorded the events with a mix of awe and apprehension. "They are not gods," he told Saleth quietly. "Yet wherever they go, certainty dies." Saleth's antennae twitched. "They do not seek to impose it. They are not even aware of the effect they have. And yet—" "Exactly," Thalian said. "It is their nature to resist comprehension. That is why the galaxy must now reckon with them." Meanwhile, deep within the stillness, The entity itself hesitated for the first time. It could suppress motivation, erase certainty, and destabilize entire civilizations. But it could not consume contradiction. It could not predict humor, defiance, or internal argument. It could not suppress the reflexive irritation that humans carried even in the gravest peril. The humans did not celebrate. They did not cheer, they argued, they joked, they complained. And in doing so, they survived. The first encounter with the stillness had not ended. It would return, larger, slower, more patient, more cunning. But humans had learned the principle. They could resist what no one else could face. Their immunity was not absolute power, but a fundamental impossibility for the universe to digest. And somewhere far beyond mapped space, the stillness waited, watching, learning, testing. But even it understood finally that some forces, even eternal, vast, unknowable ones, cannot bend human will because human will is not a single thread. It is a storm, a contradiction, a noise that refuses to be silenced. In the quiet, human voices argued about the next step. And the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, had no idea what humans would do next.